Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are taking a fascinating, high-energy journey through centuries of history. We're going to uncover exactly how a vast, untamed wilderness completely transformed into a modern global powerhouse. It's a story packed with ambition, conflict, and some seriously breathtaking innovation.
So, think about this for a second. What if one single nation could shape the modern world? Because when we zoom out, the massive global impact of the United States is just undeniable. I mean, we're talking about everything from the smartphones in our pockets, to the first moon landing, to fundamental shifts in global politics and the economy. But how exactly did we get here?
Well, to answer that, rest assured we've got a perfectly structured timeline today. We'll trace the cause and effect ripple of history across 5 key chapters: before the United States, the birth of a nation, the Civil War, the rise of industry, and finally, becoming a global superpower. It's a lot of ground to cover, so let's keep a brisk, exciting pace.
Okay, let's dive into this with Part 1, Before the United States, Flourishing Civilizations and European Arrival. You know, long before the skyscrapers ever went up, millions of indigenous people lived here in deeply complex, thriving societies.
Zooming in on these examples, you can see how incredibly diverse these civilizations were. You had the Cherokee farming highly fertile lands down in the southeast, the Sioux hunting buffalo across the massive expanse of the Great Plains, and the Pueblo peoples building these just remarkable stone communities in the southwest. For thousands of years, they flourished in harmony with nature, long before the ripple effect of global exploration changed absolutely everything.
And that massive catalyst? That happened in 1492 when Christopher Columbus reached the Americas. This single event opened the door to rapid European exploration. Soon enough, by 1607, England had set up its first permanent settlement at Jamestown, and then the Pilgrims arrived on the Mayflower in 1620. All this steady migration led directly to the establishment of 13 highly prosperous British colonies dotted right along the Atlantic coast.
Which brings us to Part 2, Birth of a Nation, Revolution and a New Constitution. Because as you might guess, the growing prosperity of those colonies inevitably led to some rising, unmanageable tensions with Britain.
And this brilliantly illustrates that step-by-step escalation. It started with strict British taxes imposed without any actual representation. Then, the protests just boiled over, with the 1773 Boston Tea Party acting as the domino that tipped the colonies into a full-blown revolution. By 1776, they'd adopted the Declaration of Independence, and led by George Washington, they actually won their hard-fought independence against the mighty British Empire in 1783. Pretty incredible, right?
Now 3. That is an absolutely crucial number here. It represents the 3 distinct branches of government established by the new Constitution in 1787. They set up this brilliant system of checks and balances specifically so no single branch could rule unchecked. This balanced framework perfectly set the stage as George Washington took office as the very first president. As the new nation expanded westward, it experienced massive economic growth. But actually, let's pause, because we have to look impartially at the severe consequences here. This growth came at a terrible cost. Native American communities were systematically forced off their ancestral lands to make way for settlers. At the same time, the brutal practice of spreading slavery was completely fracturing the country from the inside out. That brings us straight into Part 3, the Civil War, a nation divided. The ripple effect of those deep divisions over slavery and states' rights finally erupted into an inevitable, deeply tragic conflict by 1861. So the crucial point is understanding the fundamentally different goals of the 2 warring sides. You had the Northern Union, who fought primarily to preserve the unified nation, clashing directly against the Southern Confederacy, who sought complete independence to preserve their institution of slavery. These fiercely opposing goals resulted in what quickly became the deadliest war in American history.
4 years. For 4 devastating, bloody years, massive battles raged across the country. It was a time of unimaginable sacrifice that fundamentally tested whether the United States would even survive, right up until the Union finally emerged victorious.
And during that incredible crucible, a monumental shift happened. Championed by President Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation declared enslaved people in Confederate-held territories to be free. That paved the way for the 13th Amendment. The total abolition of slavery forced this fractured, battered nation to begin the incredibly long, difficult process of rebuilding itself from the ground up.
Which leads us to Part 4, Rise of Industry, Railroads, Factories, and Innovation.
The sheer urgency of rebuilding after the war acted as a massive catalyst for rapid transformation in the late 1800s.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's literally an explosion of innovation. Railroads rapidly expanded to connect the entire continent. Factories started pumping out goods on an enormous scale. Millions of immigrants arrived seeking opportunity, turning cities like New York and Chicago into these towering hubs. Add in inventors like Edison and Bell introducing world-changing tech, and boom, America transformed from a recovering nation straight into a true industrial giant.
And that takes us to our final section, Part 5, Becoming a Global Superpower. World Wars to the Space Age. Zooming out to the global stage, America's newfound industrial might allowed it to play highly decisive roles in both World War I and World War II.
By 1945, the global landscape had shifted entirely. The United States emerged as a full-blown global superpower. This completely redefined international relations and plunged the nation into a decades-long Cold War with the Soviet Union, a standoff driven by intense geopolitical maneuvering and extreme technological competition.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this fascinating dual reality it shows. On one hand, that fierce Cold War competition actually pushed humanity to the moon, with Neil Armstrong taking that historic step in 1969. But simultaneously, right back here on Earth, the civil rights movement was fighting tirelessly to secure major legal protections and equality. And as the century closed out in the 1990s, American companies were at the forefront of the global internet revolution. So, what should we take away from all this? The core takeaway of this explainer is that America's story is undeniably one of extraordinary, world-changing achievements. But it is equally a history marked by deep conflict, injustice, and an ongoing, messy effort to build a more equal society. To truly understand it, we have to impartially recognize both its boldest triumphs and its deepest challenges. Ultimately, history isn't just some dusty record of the past. It's a compass for where a nation chooses to go next. So looking at the incredible ripple effects we've explored today, where does the story go from here? Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you